So I'm moving on with my series of videos about World War II. The next thing that I'm going to talk to you about is something called the Phoney War. So in September 1939, Britain and France declare war on Germany because they've invaded Poland and don't follow an ultimatum which tells Germany that they need to leave Poland. Then, from September 1939 until April 1940, Britain and France mobilise their armies in France, but little military action takes place between the Allies and Germany, and this ends up being known as the Phoney War. In Germany it was known as the Sitzkrieg, the sitting war, because ultimately not very much happens. So why? Well, there's a number of reasons. One, bad weather. In that winter, or between September 1939 and April 1940, the weather was horrendous, and that meant that troop movements had to be reduced. Secondly, Germany is busy consolidating all the gains that they've made in Poland. Number three, the Allies pursued a defensive strategy. Basically, they're not ready to fight a large-scale war, so they don't bother attacking Germany. All they are interested in is concentrating their forces on defending their countries. Hitler, in the event, actually offers peace to Britain and to France, because essentially they're not ready either. So what happens next? Something called Blitzkrieg. It's a new German tactic that they've devised, and essentially it means lightning war. First of all, they'll attack the enemy using aeroplanes. Then they will focus their tanks on a small area, which they will hopefully then burst through the enemy, and then they will use soldiers to consolidate the gains that they have made. Using this tactic, Poland is conquered in just 2 months. Once they've conquered Poland, they then turn their attention to Norway. So Germany ends the Phoney War when it invades Norway. Norway's invaded in April 1940. Germany essentially wants to take over Norway so that they can threaten British shipping lines. They also want access to Scandinavian iron ore. Iron ore obviously being very important in the production of tanks, bombs, etc. And Britain go to defend Norway, but Norway's conquered by June 1940. What are the consequences of this? Well, first of all, Germany gain the access to that iron ore that they want. Norway becomes a German naval base. It's a humiliating defeat for the British. Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, resigns. So, essentially, this thing is catastrophic. However, Winston Churchill comes to power, and Winston Churchill is widely regarded as one of the best wartime leaders in British history, and the German naval losses that they suffer during the Norwegian campaign mean that mounting an invasion of Britain is going to become ever so slightly more difficult than it would have been previously. What happens next? Something called Operation Yellow. So Germany invades France and Belgium in May 1940, again using blitzkrieg tactics. The British and French troops are unaccustomed to facing these kinds of tactics, and they essentially retreat in panic. And after 19 days, the British forces have retreated all the way back to a place called Dunkirk, from where they are evacuated. It's another humiliating defeat for the British and the French, and ultimately France are knocked out of the war at this point. So Dunkirk, it's the only French port that's not in German hands. The British launch something called Operation Dynamo, where they are intending to evacuate the entire British Expeditionary Force, or BEF, you might also hear it referred to as. They're hoping to evacuate them from Dunkirk and take them back to Britain. They call upon all the owners of small ships to help, so they put out a call on the radio to send as many boats to Dunkirk as they can to evacuate the British. At first they're thinking that they might get away with 20, 30, possibly 40,000 soldiers, but after 6 days, 334,000 British and Allied forces are evacuated successfully. The consequences of this, well, many saw the evacuation as a victory. It inspired something that Churchill called Dunkirk spirit, which inspires the British to keep on fighting no matter whatever the odds are. However, Britain are most definitely on the back foot in World War II up until this point.